Welcome to the ST Forge, a podcast where we break down the industry's newest TTRPGs, why you should run them, and our thoughts on how they are made. Welcome to the first episode of the ST Forge. So, we're going to talk today about a TTRPG that you never thought would have been made into an RPG setting, Planet of the Apes. Hi, I'm Rick Hines.
Hi, I'm Ian Muller.
We decided at some point to get together and make a podcast where we're going to talk about the industry, a little bit behind the scenes, what we can actually do to storytell some of the games, because there's a lot of new games popping up and different things beyond Dungeons & Dragons. And there's a lot of industry chatter that goes on behind the scenes and what it takes to actually make these crowdfunding campaigns and these books into reality. So, considering that Ian and I both have decades of experience in the gaming industry because we're freaking old children of the 80s, at least I am.
Correct. Same. I don't think we've actually talked about how old we are. I think we're the same age.
So since we've done that and we've rolled many shiny math rocks, we have thoughts. Some of them good, some of them in the middle, but really, if you have these crowdfunding campaigns and you have these different game systems, how do storytellers run them? Why should you buy them? What's neat about them? Who are the people that are working behind them? So we want to talk about this stuff on a podcast and hopefully find it enjoyable. But today, it's Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes. Yeah, you nailed it. This is not a game I expected to see come out with a core rulebook for a TTRPG, but I am interested. I am a fan of the franchise overall. So,
well, I mean, classic science fiction movie that has managed to spawn, I think they're up to 6 movies now, right?
Oh, I think it might be more than that.
Yeah, maybe.
I know that one just came out. I do know that one. I haven't seen it, but I do know that one. I watched most of them in the past. But here's what happened. So, Magnetic Press Play is a offshoot print house of Magnetic Press, and their goal is to create immersive and fun epic TTRPGs. They have another game out called Carbon Gray, which is this fantastic and beautiful game, and one day might dedicate a whole freaking podcast just to that one. But they launched on Kickstarter about 22 days or so to date the podcast, so you guys know when it aired. They launched Planet of the Apes, the official role-playing game, designed by Andrew Gaska, and so the creative lead and lead writer was Andrew E.C. Gaska, who's got a litany of credits and actually managed to write official Planet of the Apes novels. His partner in crime, E.L. Thomas, is one of the lead game designers and works with the West End system. What's interesting about this is Magnetic uses the West End Games old school Star Wars D6 with some variants. I'll dive deeper into that towards the back end of the podcast of how awesome or not awesome that is. Spoiler, I'm kind of in favor of it. I think the West End system is amazing. And, the project manager that always gets, should get more credit for what she does, Tony Ann Marini, putting together an entire project with minis, lore, licensing, contracts, multiple books,
just all of the things, and compiling them together to make it look like it does on this Kickstarter page and make it look like the quickstart packet does. Mm-hmm. Props, Tony Ann. We understand how that looks because I'm looking at all the products that are assembled on the Kickstarter page.
It's a lot.
So here's what they did. They launched a Kickstarter, the role-playing game of Planet of the Apes. Right now, they've raised $241,000, and they've got 14,000, or sorry, not 14,000. That would be absurd. 1,456. I bet they wish they were at 14,000.
Yeah. Don't we all?
Right. So they created this Kickstarter campaign, and you get to play in a world ruled by apes. So let's go over the Kickstarter first. What do you think about the message? What are they doing? What's their intent of this project?
Yeah, so just looking at the Kickstarter page, I like it. Overall, it's very image heavy. They've got
they obviously have a lot of work done already on all these assets. The art is great. The general flow of the page is pretty good. Like, and I'm a marketing person in my day job, so I'm gonna overanalyze some things that other people don't care about. But flow of information is super important when you're trying to sell something, right? I think overall, it looks really cool. I'm immediately going, this looks awesome. But there's some stuff that like kind of sticks out to me that I would probably have done a little differently. I know from following the campaign from day one, like they did not originally have a quick start out. They kind of offered a little bit of a primer for people to look at it, but they didn't have any deep dive into what the game was, what the system was. There were a lot of questions being asked, like, "Hey, do I play as humans? Do I play as apes? What are my options here?" That aren't super clear. So they definitely focused on the aesthetic and the art for this page, but they didn't give us, at least originally when if they first launched, like a lot of that in-depth detail that as a gamer I would have wanted to see.
Fair. And I guess that is one question. I mean, at the start they've made some overhauls, and I followed it from the beginning as well. The big question is, if I'm not a fan of Planet of the Apes, why would I play? What am I playing? And the other things on the Kickstarter page that I see that are always a sign of a campaign that can appeal to both fans or people that are curious about something is when you have all of the accessories, like the minis they have, all the STL files, the multiple books, and the cost that they have this stuff at is actually really cheap.
Surprisingly so, yeah.
Yes. Like they have their core book is
$50, I think.
Yeah, the core book, and it is a huge book, and that right there is, I actually think they probably could have had that be more from
and then they have a campaign box set that's also $50. So like you can get the core book and a full campaign with dice, a GM screen, cards, and all those extras for $100, which is wild to me. Like you and I have talked about pricing for games a lot in the past. That pricing is impressively low to me.
Even the great giant in the room, Wizards of the Coast, is raising their prices with their 1D&D, right? Because print costs have gone up. So value-wise, this Kickstarter is an absolute freaking steal. Yep. I almost would be shocked if post-Kickstarter, the prices of these books did not go up to actually match retail value, which means that if you back into the Kickstarter, you're definitely going to get more for your dollar, right?
Definitely.
Now, because we say, oh, they've raised 250,000 or near 250,000. That sounds to a lot of people who are starting off in crowdfunding like a huge value amount, but that number goes away very, very quickly when you have a lot of minis and accessories and hardcover books and slipcases and maps and all of the other accessories that get wrapped up into a product. So that's some of the things that I see. Ultimately, if I just saw this in the wild and I didn't start taking a deep dive into it, I know I would have had a hard time backing it at first because I wouldn't have realized what you could do with it, right?
Yeah, same.
I would have been like, okay, I like Planet of the Apes. It's a world that really talks about bigotry and racism and the worst aspects of humanity put into the forefront and center, right? And twists that around on your head so that you get to see the worst of us in this kind of, sometimes the quirky, the weirdest, but why in a fantasy world would I want to sit down and play that system? Why would I want to play with those themes? It's an extremely prolific franchise in their commentary on human society, and that is what makes it a wonderful sci-fi world. But why play in it? And I think the answer, when I got sent and was allowed to download the Quick Start packet, was in the writing.
Yeah.
And the Quick Start packet answered all of these questions. First off, when you actually open up the Quick Start PDF, right, it is freaking gorgeous. I'm going to have to put a disclaimer at the start of these podcasts because I swear like a construction worker at some point and just be like, hey, it's going to happen. But the quick start guide and the layout of what they're doing is absolutely gorgeous, right?
Can we touch on the art for a second? Like the fact that all of this looks hand painted, which is wild to me. The art as you're scrolling through the quick start is just this beautiful, like, hand painted, almost like oil painting style that I absolutely love. I think it's phenomenal.
Yes, it's the layout, the way that the pages are easy to flow through, and the artwork behind them, and even like the little Easter eggs that they have hinted in their page borders and things like that, are great. But the writing, right? Mm-hmm. What it opens up right at the start of chapter 1 with this whole ape never kills ape, right? The self-destruction brought upon the world by humankind has taught apes one thing: never turn on their own kind. Now, you don't even know what you're playing yet in the campaign, and right away they're having a lawgiver give you a rule, which in a tabletop RPG setting is absolutely going to get broken.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That rule is not going to be there, and the powerful, poignant statement of putting this lawgiver rule right next to the Statue of Liberty in the first opening page of Chapter 1 sets the tone for what this game is. It's going to be a game of moral grays, hunting strange science fiction themes, and encountering the devastation that humanity left upon the world. And the writing for it is great. The idea, there's texts of the idea that apes were descendant from humans and things like that are forbidden heretical texts in the book. Human civilization is long gone. There's these mysterious astronauts that occasionally pop in, these alien species. But you're ultimately playing as, people in ape society, the chimps, the gorillas, the orangutans, but you're Planet the Apes. You're elevated, smart, genetically modified, almost in a post transhumanism world because of the way that they were made. So uplifted, right, as they were. But the mood and theme that they write them when they get to the human sections is where the book turns it into his head and instantly makes you want to actually play with it. Because as the sacred scrolls assure us, humans are nothing more than wild animals put on the planet for us apes to use as we see fit. In this setting, humans are the slaves, the downtrodden, the people locked up and chained for working, and it is an intentional commentary about humankind's history. And I know that putting that topic in a game to play with is extremely difficult, but it is also extremely important to acknowledge history at times and look at that. Now, that doesn't have to be the theme of the game. You can have an entire Planet of the Apes game where you are scientists uncovering the ruins of Poland and finding these strange talking boxes and then being labeled as heretics for, bringing evidence that human civilization, really kind of preceded them, right? You can, play these things that challenge the norms. And you can also play on the flip side. You could play the mysterious astronauts that are coming down, and you understand human history, know how we got here, and you see this planet completely twisted and inverted on its head, and all you see is the society of apes reliving the worst mistakes that humans did that led them to their ultimate global destruction anyway.
It's an awesome mix of things, because as you're going through the different types of characters you can play, I like the shift in focus, especially when you go from playing an ape to a human, because you can play a chimpanzee, a gorilla, an orangutan, very classic Planet of the Apes style. They also have the mutants in there, so you can play one of those evolved, more human than human type characters, and then they have tribal humans and the astronauts, and like the dichotomy of how. I'm assuming Andrew wrote these parts, but it may have been someone else too.
Might have been Eric. Those two go back and forth with each other, and like you can tell because like knowing and reading some of their other books, they have a very fun, cheeky, sarcastic style in the strangest places, right?
Yeah.
Like they hide things that make you chuckle. Yep. In spots that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting to. Like, there's such a great dichotomy going through the different types and like those little pieces that make you kind of laugh out loud as you're reading through it. And sometimes it's just silly, and then sometimes there's a cleverness to it that really hones in on the themes of the original Planet of the Apes that I can appreciate.
So, all right, we're gamers. We have psychic powers, we have apes, we have scientists, we have an inverted world, we have a society, you have something to play with, which means that you have a sandbox of stories that you can tell.
Yep.
What are you going to do with it with a West End D6 system? What do you like about West End?
So my first introduction to West End was the Ghostbusters RPG, actually, which I highly recommend. I hope Magnetic Press brings it back to life. I hope they revive it. That would be awesome. But I think that it's incredibly simple to pick up and learn. The learning curve is super low, but it gives you a lot of flexibility in what you're going to do with your game, both as a GM and as a player. I think as a storyteller, it's a great system to run, just from a standpoint of easy to run, easy to introduce to new players, easy to make your own as you're telling a story. And then as a player, like I don't have to do math heavily, which I always appreciate as someone who is terrible at math.
So what I like about it is one of my things that I don't really enjoy about the D20 D&D class system as much is you don't have skill progression. Yeah. Your character, all of the characters have some similarity, and everybody just gets a set proficiency, and that's it. They're done. The West End system is one of those skill-based systems where you have your attributes, right? Sure, you got your dexterity, your willpower, your mechanical, but you actually get skills that you get to pick and put them under the trees and level them up and play with them, and so you can spend your experience on your character after every game session and progress what you're doing, which works extremely well for longer form campaigns. It allows you could have two players play scientists, and they will end up feeling very different at the table, just by their choices that they take. And you get to have some crunch as well. The West End may be easy to play with, and run with, but when you dive down into it and you start getting advanced characters and you've played for a while, you get some fun stuff that you can take. And it definitely scales up for a longer term campaign. So, here's my next question. If you're a storyteller, how do you use this book? I have an idea, but I want to hear your idea first.
So I'm going to break this into two answers, because looking at the campaign as it's going, you've got your core book, but they also have the ANSA Files book, which I'm very interested to see what's in there. The ANSA Files is a film source book, so it's really digging into resources from the films themselves, both the original 4, and also the comics and novelization. So it's adding all of that lore in. I'm super excited to see what that brings into the to the table. For the quick start, though, for me, this is a game about telling stories of hope for a different type of person. And what I mean by that is, I think the Planet of the Apes as a whole is about discovering what brings us all together in a certain aspect. What are the ties that bind human and ape, and how can we coexist in this world? And I think it's very much like a hope punk type of setting to me, almost. And that's kind of this type of story I would want to tell with this. This is going to give me a lot of tools, even if I'm not telling a Planet of the Apes story. It's going to give me the tools to show, bringing different groups together, overcoming, prejudices, overcoming technological obstacles, and overcoming your own expectations and assumptions of who people are and what the world is, because that's really like at the crux of what a game like this is gonna give me.
All right. I have a completely different style and take on this.
I am not surprised.
See, I got drawn instantly to this quote of, "This is the Alpha and Omega bomb. It can destroy not only Ape City, but the entire Earth. Activate it and we become nothing. Leave it and its very presence will ensure that we at least remain something." And it's just a freaking nuclear missile in a shrine being prayed to with holy clerics. To me, I am a storyteller, or I have a play group. I buy this book, and I don't tell them that I have this book. And over a campaign, particularly if you're already running a West End game, and you're already running Star Wars, or you're already running, even like Ghostbusters or whatnot, you can bring people over into another portal or type, or have some of the lore start bleeding in from this other planet, this other civilization.
Yeah.
And I think this surprise of what Planet of the Apes is a gold mine to play with. You know, you guys encountering this thing. I would probably not start off a campaign where, hey, you're playing all of these things. I would probably have the campaign world introduced to my players as a surprise and keep the book hidden in secret until you start letting it out, and then see the aha dawn moment on the players' minds, right?
Yeah.
But if I was gonna play it in the more traditional way, I would 100% be playing it where you're playing, part of ape civilization, and you're dealing with these things that humanity left behind.
Oh yeah.
In really twisting that dark narrative of humanity's own history for war. And then of course the apes are totally gonna get into wars and, kill each other, violating the lawgiver rules of chapter 1. But I would play with that hands down. But that's why, if you aren't a Planet of the Apes fan, you pick up and you read other TTRPG products, and you pick it up and you keep it on your bookshelf and you keep it secret for the one time that your players are going to go to something different, but you want to still add a level of familiarity to your players and twist a narrative on them. And that's 100% how I would use this.
The thing is with, us both having slightly different storytelling styles, and also, different takes on how to approach a game like this, there's so many opportunities to mix and match and blend certain types of stories. I think a story that goes from what I would tell to what you would tell, or vice versa, is also interesting. And then, for people that want to tell a more traditional story, the game also lends itself to that beautifully. And that's going to be super important for having a book on your shelf that you play more than once.
Plus, the hardcover book just looks freaking gorgeous.
Especially the slipcover edition. The setup for that is beautiful with the stonework look that it has.
So I guess 2 final questions then. Final question I'll ask is, Ian, if you worked on this project, what would you have done different?
So this one's an interesting one. That I'll talk about this a little bit. For those who don't know, the Planet of the Apes franchise is owned by Disney. As you go up that ladder of who owns what, it's owned by Disney. Working with Disney is a lot of red tape when you're licensing something. So I'm sure that some of the things that I would have done differently were held back by waiting for approvals, because Disney is going to want to look at every single aspect of every single thing that goes out into the world about this game. From the initial, project itself to, every line of text in this book, all of the marketing, etc. So what I would have done differently is I would have done a lot of marketing up front that they didn't do. That's probably why, I'm making a little bit of an assumption here, but I think getting a lot more information and more word about the game out before they launched the campaign, even before they put up the teaser page, I would have had that quick start out a lot sooner, I think. And I love the setup that they have, all the options, all the minis, the dice, etc. But I haven't really seen anyone showcasing it yet. I haven't seen the minis, I haven't seen any content creators showcasing anything. And so I'm curious to see how it all comes out when we can see more of the physical product itself. And I would have tried to do that sooner if they were able to. If they weren't, that's a shame. But I think the art itself does give us a good taste of it.
Okay, here's mine. You have Andrew E.C. Gasco working on this project. This guy wrote Death of the Planet of the Apes and Conspiracy of the Planet of the Apes.
Yep.
And the only mention you can find of the official novels is buried down under his team name.
Yeah.
When you have an full-on author who, by the way, like, these books are really highly rated, like 240 ratings on freaking Amazon, 4.6 average, absolutely like great books. Andrew's an amazing writer.
Not to mention his RPG creds with Alien and Terminator and all the other games that he's worked on. I'm a huge Alien fan. You know that.
It's there, but the reason why these two novels is incredibly specific is because you have this crowdfunding campaign written, designed, creative director, and Eric E.L. Thomas and everybody else is working on the project. There's additional writers and stuff. Like there's a whole like freaking team bio.
Yeah.
But when your lead is the person who actually wrote the freaking novels, and you can't find the novels or more about it or knowing like what lore they were allowed to bring in, because if you really wanted to appeal to Planet of the Apes fans, I would have the freaking novels up there as add-ons. I would do something of like, hey, you can get autographed books. There's a lot you can do with that. And just knowing that you have the author of those novels helming the design of the project means that the interiors of the book are going to be like right in line with lore from somebody who's a deep nerd in the franchise. And that comes to play. When I looked at the Kickstarter page, where I first heard the announcements and I saw the initial advertisement, I was like, really? Planet of the Apes ttrpg. And then I open up the quickstart guide and I start diving into the writing, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is what you can do and play with this.
Yeah. And it's not just Andrew either. Rich Handley, who did Tales from the Forbidden Zone, The Timeline of the Planet of the Apes, Lexicon of Planet of the Apes, Conspiracy, like he has worked on a ton of stuff as well. And then I think there's a few other people. Jim Beard is also one of the writers on it. So it's not just Andrew too, from that broader franchise beyond the films.
Right. And yes. So, I mean, just having these kind of authors, you gotta have a little bit more of that would, I think, attract the people who are like, I'm fans of the franchise or I'm fans of these authors. I want to support and do that. That's what I would have highlighted from like a publisher standpoint and brought a little bit more of that to the forefront. All right.
Definitely.
So last question then, who should buy this? Who's this for?
So obviously fans of Planet of the Apes. If you are a big fan of the franchise in general, even if you're not a gamer, honestly, like some of the accessories, some of the minis are cool collectibles.
The Ansa book alone makes it like you do not even have to, like, they even address right in the quick start rule, are you not a gamer? Let us explore like the lore and some of the stories that can be told. And
exactly.
The player's handbook is reading already like a beautiful, fun lore tie for everything. So if you like the franchise, the collectibles, the minis, the pretty books, like as a gift set or for friends and family that, really love it. Even that uncle who's never going to roll a dice ever, this book still works for.
Definitely. Beyond that, if you like D6 systems, first of all, if you're a fan of West End, which is going to be a great addition to your collection. And I think if you enjoy like the two types of stories that we were talking about, if you like Hope Punk, if you like that style of gameplay, if you like post-apocalyptic games, you're going to like this. If you like looming threats and dealing with incredibly difficult moral choices and playing within that morally gray area heavily in your games, you're going to really like this game. Also, I think fans of Andrew's work, obviously, but fans of that broader non-human game style. If you enjoy playing as like more human than human, I think this is a game for you as well.
Well, I agree with all of that. So the only change the only thing I would add to that is you mentioned post-apocalyptic, right? I think that even if you don't know what Planet of the Apes is, right, and you want to play around with a mutant psychic
post-apocalyptic world, and you're looking for a robust rule set that's going to offer an entire society and culture that might be new to both you and your players, but you are fans of the post-apocalyptic setting, this is what you play, right?
Definitely.
You come, you land, everything is laid out, there's the rules, the society, and you can all discover the game together.
Especially a post-human society, because I don't know if you're familiar with the game Pugmire. There's a kind of an inside joke that Pugmire is actually a post-human world.
Yeah, doesn't it lead into Cthulhu?
No, it's a different one, but there's a cat something. I don't remember what it is.
Okay.
But the inside joke about that game is it's actually a post-human, post-apocalyptic society that has gone full fantasy, where animals are, the main surviving primary species, and it kind of lends itself to that style of tongue-in-cheekness as well, because it's post-human but it's not at the same time.
Yeah, so I think that if you at all are running any type of post-apocalyptic setting, even if it's not even in the West End system, this book is useful to have as a storyteller on your shelf to pull and even grab a story, right? You don't even have to take and incorporate the entire Planet of the Apes world. You could just say, hey, you go to London, and for some reason this city, as it is run by an ape society of super intelligent uplifts, and you have everything you need from that: the NPCs, the antagonists, the minis, and even new character unlock options and genetic manipulation. So as a bleed-in, and just completely ignoring the Planet of the Apes, the contents of the books fit perfectly alongside any post-apocalyptic world, in my opinion.
100%. Well, Rick, final question on my side. What's your general takeaway for Planet of the Apes as a storyteller and as a writer and as a creator of TTRPGs as well? What's your final takeaway on this one?
My final takeaway is that it was a license that I never thought I would grab or see in a TTRPG world, right? There's a lot of lore, there's a lot of things that you can do with it. But I wouldn't have initially sat down and said, oh, that makes sense. So this goes to really show, from a producer and a writer standpoint, the power of how you present information and the power of the staff and team members and designers that you have working on a project, because they can take something and make it genuinely fucking fun.
Hell yeah. You nailed it. I don't have anything else to add to that.
Well, I think that's it for our first podcast.
Yeah, geez. Awesome.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to have more of these, and we're going to continue to talk about RPGs from an industry and design standpoint and a storytelling standpoint. So thank you for listening to ST Forge. You can find us on our website, Storytellers Forge, all other places, and links and all that stuff is usually in the show notes, along with, and most importantly, a link to where to go to back Planet of the Apes, because Ian and I both genuinely agree this is a product that storytellers should have on their shelf.